Okay, for lesson 9, which is compositioning, we're going to take a look at smart objects. We're going to take a look at using some different color effects. Um, and again, we're going to kind of play with that pen tool that you used in the last lesson. Um, the pen tool and these smart objects can become two of your biggest allies, two of your biggest friends using Photoshop, as long as you practice them and you learn how to use them correctly. Okay. So you do need to download the lesson file from the module before we get started. And then once you have that open, we will take a look at it. So we're going to shrink this down. We're going to come over here into Photoshop, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up my two images that I gave you. Now this is going to be our working file, and what we're going to do is we're going to create these labels that go right here. Now, one of the things that we're going to talk about with this is creating what's called smart objects. With smart objects, you can do a lot of different things with them, but one of the big things you can do is, like, let's say on these bottles, we needed to create a line of scents, and we wanted all the labels to look exactly the same, and we wanted to be able to go in and switch them out whenever we wanted to. You can do that with this. For one of my last jobs, I was a product photographer and a product editor, or a photo editor for the products that I shot. And what I could do was I would make one bottle, I would photograph one bottle, and I could change out the labels on the bottle as much as I wanted just using this. So this is also, smart objects are an awesome way to work with Illustrator as well. So it's just a good kind of thing to have in your bag. They're also non-destructive, so you can do a lot with them in that way as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this bottle a little bit. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this image of oranges that I gave you, and I'm going to Control A and Control C, Control V to paste it on here. And I want you to kind of size it down so that it would fit over this label. And again, if you need to lower the opacity, you can do that. We're going to kind of make it fit right here. Okay, so pretty close. I'll raise my opacity back up on it. Then I'm going to close it for right now. And what I want to do is I want to grab that pen tool, and I'm going to select this out. If you choose not to use the pen tool, that's fine, but this is a great opportunity to kind of practice with it and kind of lay out what we're doing with this label. So I'm going to go around it. Now, I always say the pen tool is a really great tool to use whenever you're having to select something like this out that's white on white. It allows you to kind of choose where it's going to be, whereas if you were using some of the selection tools, you would not have those same kind of options with it. Okay, there we go. It's pretty close. Now I have this nice path around it. I want to come to my paths panel, and I'm going to turn it into a selection just by clicking on these little circles down here, right there. That looks like little marching ant circles. Come back over to layers, open up my oranges, and I'm going to actually change the name of this right now. So I'm going to change this layer to oranges. Okay, so I have this now. I have what I want to mask out. So I'm just going to simply click on this and create a mask. Now, you can see that there's a little bit of white line up here. If I want to clean it up, the easiest way to do this is to come over and grab my direct selection tool, which is in the tools right below my text. And then I can click on, go back to my path, select my path, double click on the path, and I can just pull this up just a smidge on that anchor point. So that's another reason it's nice to work with these paths, is you can go back and change them later. And then I'm going to click out of it. I can still see that white line, but what I need to do is just fix my mask right here. So I'm going to grab my black paintbrush. Oh, sorry, my white paintbrush. And I'm going to paint right. Oops. I go back to my path, change it into a selection. There we go. There we go. You just have to make it back into a selection and you can clean it up. Okay. So you can go back and forth as much as you need to do that. Now, what I can do is I can come in here now and I can turn this into a smart object. So it's going to hold this shape for me. So no matter what I put in there, I can just switch it out. So I can right click right here and I can go up here and do convert to smart object. You'll now see there's a little piece of paper down here in the corner of the thumbnail. So you right clicked, did convert to smart object, and it puts this little paper here. Now what happens is now it becomes an uneditable layer out here right now. But if I come in here, there is my oranges and there is my little mask that I created. So now let's say I'm just going to go and open. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to go and open a random image. I have here, we'll do the fish from one of our previous lessons. Control A, Control C, and I can come over into that. There, it's called a PSB file, and Control V, and I can size that down and make it fit the way I want. Let's say that's what I wanted on the front of my bottle instead. And I can close these oranges. I can move this up. Now you can see it's going to be, and I close it, ask if you want to save. Yes. Now I have a turtle on my bottle. Okay, so this comes in really handy because you can just like flip through them and switch them if you wanted to. Now, another thing you can do is I'm going to go back into it and I'm going to pull that mask back down. I'm going to get rid of this turtle. So now I have this in here and I don't want them to be oranges. I want them to be lemons. So I can come down here to this circle right here, which is my adjustment layers. And I'm going to click on that circle and I'm going to do hue saturation. No, yeah, let's do hue saturation. And I'm going to change it. I'm going to push this until I get to a yellow. So now it looks more like lemons. I can even adjust my saturation, take the saturation out a little bit just so that it's not so bright and obnoxious. And mess with it until I get it the way I want it to look. Now, I still have my oranges, but I also can now have lemons. So again, I'm going to close this, hit yes, and now I have lemons on my bottles. So this comes in really handy because I can go in and I can switch it out to as many different things as I want. Now, to finish out this one, what I want to do is I want to create a highlight on the side of my bottle. Okay, so I'm going to use my gradient tool. So what I want to do is come over here and grab my gradient, and I want to switch my color to be white for my foreground color. I'm going to come up here, I'm going to do my drop down, and in my basics, I want it to go white to translucent. And then what I want to do is I'm just going to put a little highlight coming from the side. So using my tool, I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to zoom out. Now, you can create a selection and do the gradient just in that selection, but I found that the tighter the selection is, the tighter the gradient is. And so you go from white to nothing, like it's pretty harsh. So on this, I want it to fade slowly. So I'm going to just do it out here. And then I have this nice big gradient right here. And then I can cut it down to fit inside of that label so that you can see it. So now I can Control T. And I'm going to pull this down. Okay, and I'm not going to make it fit completely because what I want to do is I want to press Control and click on the orange thumbnail so I can get that label shape back. And then on layer one, I'm going to create a mask. That way now I can unlock my mask right here and I can use my move tool. And as long as I'm on my thumbnail, I can move that and make adjustments to that as much as I want. And again, I can control T it down here to line up with the highlight that's already on it. And then just hit the check mark. So now I have this nice little highlight over here. And again, you can play with the opacity to kind of dim it down a little bit. And there's actually a little bit of a shadow over here. So you could do the exact same thing. You could, oh, and I'm going to relink these just to make it easier. I'm going to rename this one highlight. Okay. And now I'm going to create another new layer, but this time I'm going to make sure my foreground color is black. And I'm going to grab my gradient tool and it should go black to translucent. Again, if you don't want perfectly black, if you're doing something and you want to pick up the shade of the bottle, you can do that as well. I'm going to control T. Now my shade's going the wrong direction, so I'm just going to flip it. And again, resize it. I always keep my gradients a little big just to make it a little bit easier to be able to see them. Then remember, if you press and hold Alt and click your mask, you can drag it up to that layer 1. And I'm going to go ahead and name this shadow. Yeah. And now you can see I have a little bit of shadow on there, but if I'm unhappy with it, again, I can use my move tool. I can move it around. I can change the opacity just to make that label look a little more three-dimensional. Now I've done, my project and I show it to the creative director and the creative director is like, no, 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 no. The bottle in the front needs to be limes or it needs to be grapefruits. So what I'm going to do is come in here and I double click on my orange again. And now under this hue saturation, I can change it. Let's go, oops, wrong button. Let's go limes, but these limes are like really obnoxiously green. So I'm going to turn down my saturation a little bit. Okay, so there's my limes. And I close it, I hit save, and now my bottle has limes on it. So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and create the labels on these other ones, doing the same kind of steps. Have one be oranges, one be limes, one be lemons, and one be grapefruits. So for the grapefruit one, just make it a little bit more pinky. And so all 4 bottles will have labels on them. Unfortunately, because the way the bottles are sitting, you can't just copy one label and put it on all of them. You're going to have to use that pen tool to select them all. So here's kind of what I want your final example to look like. If you want to go ahead and use the oranges, you can change each of them so that they're a different fruit just through using that hue saturation option whenever you have it in the smart object. So put a different label on each one. If you want to come up with your own image and just change it for each one, you can do that as well. Just make sure you're using that adjustment layer, okay? You can also see over here on my layers that I do have, highlights and shadows on all the bottles just to make them look a little bit more realistic, using the mask to mask off where they need to stay. So I want you to try some different things and experiment with this, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with. If you have any questions, shoot me an email and we'll get you an answer.